मम वाचमिमां प्रसुप्तां सञ्जीवयत्यखिलशक्तिधरस्वधाम्ना अन्यांश्च हस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम् प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम्.
Humble pranams, Swamiji. Pranams to Ma. Namaskarams to Justice Bhushan and all the members of the legal fraternity here today, as well as fellow seekers. This is the first time that one of the brahmacharinis has been asked to introduce Pujya Swamiji. And we were thinking that what is it that we can share with you? Most of you know about Pujya Swamiji. Justice Bhushan was here last year as well, and have heard about Pujya Swamiji, the master of the scriptural knowledge, the self-knower, the great master who has television programs in Malayalam and English, who has written innumerable books. But what many of you don't know is the aspect of Swamiji with which those of us living in the ashram are privy to. How does the master live in daily life? What is his life and what distinguishes him from all of us? As some of you may know, Swamiji's life is such a vast canvas. The source of this started in a small village of Parlikad in Thrissur district in Kerala, where Swamiji grew up in a fairly orthodox religious and traditional household. After he finished his schooling and education, he went to Calcutta, where the event that transformed his life took place. Swamiji met Baba Gangadhara Paramahamsa, his Gurudev, and took Diksha. That one event changed his life, and at a very young age of 23, Pujya Swamiji took up sannyasa. After taking up sannyasa and the wandering life of a wandering sannyasin for 2 or 3 years, Swamiji started staying in Venginisheri village, which is near Thrissur, on the side of a hill, in a hut made of mud blocks covered with leaf fronds, coconut palm fronds. With Swamiji were a few disciples and devotees. Whenever we asked Swamiji that, Swamiji, how did you manage? There was no money. Did you starve? So he said, yes, we starved, but not for many days. Providence would come to our rescue. Somebody would bring many provisions. The next 2 decades of Swamiji's life was spent propagating Brahma Vidya, knowledge of the self, the eternal knowledge. Swamiji was writing innumerable books, initiating devotees, bringing out journals in Malayalam and English, and going around like a moving university in various parts of India and the world, spreading the knowledge, being available for anybody who had any problem, any seeker who had any question. Then from 1983 onwards begins a very different phase of Swamiji's life, and one not usually associated with a knower of the truth. When we think of a saint or a knower, we think of them either removed from society, living in a jungle or forest or ashram, far away from the madding crowd, and engaging in meditation, maybe giving some lectures, being with devotees. But the period of 1983 to about period of 1995 was one of almost cyclonic activity in Swamiji's life, and a very different type of activity. It was socio-religious reform. In Kerala, which is a place of great temple worshippers and some very great temples and saints, somebody brought to Swamiji's attention that some of the temples had practices which were really quite cruel and degrading and almost inhuman. After going into the matter, Swamiji found it was so, and he felt that as a member of the Hindu religious society, this should not be allowed. It is not in conformity with our great religion based on this eternal knowledge. And from 83 to 95 or longer, Pujya Swamiji has led mass movements in Kerala, which has brought about what we call a thought revolution. There was a point when the Kerala press, which covered all these very widely, started calling Swamiji the controversial Swamiji. Why controversial? Because what he spoke brought about a controversy in people's minds. We were used to thinking a certain way, and anything linked to the divine, there was the fear of divine wrath. How can we change it? It's an age-old practice. But Swamiji was absolutely fearless, based in rationality. And what was the source of this unswerving courage in the face of really very violent opposition at many times? There was a movement where in Kerala, in some temples, they would suspend a devotee on a 30-foot high scaffold, and that would go around the temple several times. And what was the purpose? The purpose was that somebody else was offering a penance. They had done something. So the penance to the goddess was this, but you could hire somebody to do this for you. It was so inhumane and so cruel, and yet it continued. Why Kerala? It continues in different parts of the world, where we feel it's quite acceptable for somebody to do it. For those of us who have resources, we can do this. Swamiji had to fight that movement called Tukam for 8 years, because the fight was not a fight just by going to the temple and saying we should stop it. It was a fight to capture the minds of people. One unique facet of Swamiji is that he is a very upright citizen. In our ashram, the great scriptural texts are consulted very often, but so is the Constitution of India. Because for everything, Swamiji wants to know what did the Constitution say and what is our duty as a citizen of India. So everything he has undertaken is to uphold the citizenly rights and to make sure that the rest of us also follow. The first movement of Nilakal was followed by Tukam. Tukam was followed by Kodungalur. Kodungalur was followed by Guruvayur. As you all know, Guruvayur is one of the most hallowed precincts in Kerala and around the world. The Lord of Guruvayur, who has devotees coming from everywhere, it was found out that some of the devotees could not be allowed in to do the drumming and make musical offerings to the Lord. So this movement against caste oppression in such a famous temple, Swamiji had to fight for 5 years. As you can imagine, coming from a traditional religious background, one of the known saints of Kerala, bringing up these points to the society, it was not something appreciated or looked upon, till it was found that through his articles, through his lectures, through his speeches, exhorting all of us, making us understand what is right, what is wrong, why should this not be followed, started impacting and influencing the minds of the public. The minds of the public, because it came from a person like Swamiji, also felt emboldened and strengthened by his very clear stance, and slowly we found that the public opinion started going against all these various practices, which were really not very human. And we found that Swamiji successfully fought them in the court, at the district official level, in the minds of devotees, which was the hardest part, and brought about the change. As these movements, when you look at the life of any saint, are very unusual. And as anybody knows, that a fight like this would not be easy. There were many moments which were extremely difficult. There was a lot of opposition, there were threats, but Swamiji was steadfast. And if you look, what was the source of this? The source of it was Atmana Vindate Viryam. The self is the source of all courage in any endeavor. So when we heard that the topic for today's lecture is spiritual excellence in contemporary life, we thought that many of you may be wondering that how does spiritual excellence impact me? I mean, spiritual excellence is meant for those who are on the spiritual path, who have renounced, who have gone away. But it is so unique a topic, and our Pujya Swamiji is a prime example which many people don't know about. After this phase of Swamiji's life, of winning these movements and instituting rational practices in place of the derogatory practices, Swamiji's life took a much wider turn. His concern and love for society led him to establish the Centers for Inner Resources Development in Delhi, Jamshedpur, different parts of India, in the USA and in Malaysia. These centers were a little different from our traditional Narayanashram Tapovanam in Kerala, in that this knowledge through them becomes available to anybody and everybody, regardless of their religion, their background, their orientation. Because it is to develop your inner resources. Our knowledge, this eternal treasure, as interpreted by Pujya Swamiji, is the heritage of this area of the world. It's a centuries-old heritage which is beyond religion. And this heritage has to be made available to all of humanity. So through these centers, Swamiji is working to spread this knowledge in a way that makes it available to everyone. In addition to this, in 2008, the Foundation for Restoration of National Values, which is an independent society, was inspired by Pujya Swamiji's leadership, and this society was registered to work for restoration of national values in our country. And what are these national values? Something so simple: honesty, having regard for elders, cleanliness, which are simple things, but for some reason seemed lost to our society, not necessarily available in our educational system, and more importantly, not known that it is part of our heritage and written in our scriptures. The society is working under the leadership of Dr. E. Sridharan, Swamiji's disciple, and many others who are concerned. They are focusing on educational reform. They did some work in police reform as well. Now, the latest effort of Swamiji is to bring the message of the Bhagavad Gita to the whole world. As part of this effort, for the past 3 years, global Bhagavad Gita conventions have been organized in the United States to make an effort to let people know that our Bhagavad Gita is not a religious text. It is something which has universal values, which are extremely valuable and necessary for any human being. Not an Indian human being or an American human being, but for any human being. Because the message of the Bhagavad Gita is not given sitting on a mountain from one sage to a disciple. It is given by a king acting as a charioteer to another king who had to fight the battle of his life, killing maybe all his relatives, all his friends. This message, as interpreted by Pujya Swamiji, is so valuable, and tirelessly for the last 3 years, Swamiji has been working to bring it about first in American society and then bring it back to India. As somebody mentioned the other day, things which come from that direction sometimes are more well received than if they start from this end. What we would like to share with you in the end is Swamiji's life, which started as a small trickle from a small village in Kerala, like the Gomukh. Now that he's completed 86 years, is wider than the Ganga Sagar. The Ganga Sagar, where it meets the ocean, the Ganga is so wide that we cannot comprehend from where it starts and where it ends. Swamiji's whole life is underwritten not just by this knowledge of the eternal. This knowledge of the eternal becomes available in his life mainly by his love, I think, for all of us. Sarva bhuta hite rataha, the welfare of all, working for the welfare of all, is the slogan, I think, for our Gurudev's life. And we find that he does it at this age, traveling tirelessly, maybe when the body is not well, when the body is very sick. But that is, today we are very, very fortunate to be gathered here to hear from him that this spiritual excellence in our contemporary life, what is the significance and the relevance? Jai Guru.
Yam Shaiva Samupasate Shivaidi ब्रह्मेति वेदान्तिनो बहुधा बुद्ध इति प्रमाणपटवः कर्तेति नैयायिकाः अर्हन्नित्यथ जैनशासनरताः कर्मेति मीमांसकाः सोऽयं वो विदधातु वाञ्छितफलं त्रैलोक्यनाथो हरिः सोऽयं वो विदधातु वाञ्छितफलं त्रैलोक्यनाथो हरिः मदीयहृदयाकाशे सदानन्दमयो गुरुः उदेतु सततं सम्यक् अज्ञानतिमिरारुणः हरिः हरिः ओम तत्सत् जय गुरु. Before I start speaking, I have always been having a kind of a chorus recitation by the audience of Omkara, the auspicious monosyllable. I have spoken earlier also about the benefit of this Omkara recitation. The modern cardiologists say that it has got the unique power of strengthening the heart and increasing its longevity. So far as we are concerned, we are looking into the mental, intellectual and spiritual effects of Omkara recitation. I would like you to recite this collectively in chorus, but feeling in your mind that our chorus recitation should start permeating the whole universe, generating and unleashing its benedictory influences, so that all the creatures are having their welfare, contentment, and also peace. It is possible, and it is possible only for the human life. There are so many other creatures and beings on the earth, but it is only the human who has got the power of thought and the power of expression and sharing. Let us utilize this power and by employing our vocal system, generate a benedictory influence which will have a global permeation. I would like you to interlock your fingers and put them on your lap. Sit comfortably erect. Close your eyes. Open the heart and the mouth and join me. I don't think that you should have any kind of a shyness, restraint or reluctance in joining in this recitation. Your forefathers would be extremely happy that you do this, and the coming generations would be immensely grateful to you also. This is how we generate the strength of the cultural heritage that we have all imbibed from our forefathers here in this holy land. Harihi, Harihi. I shall recite and you join me. It was good, but should be better. All of you join without any reservation. It's a great opportunity. Very good. We shall have a super best last. My dear and blessed souls, I have been coming to this platform and addressing the people who are present in this august hall ever since this memorial trust was formed. I had already expressed in earlier years about my appreciation as well as assessment about our Reverend Mehrotra conducting this kind of a memorial presentation. Everyone is born of a set of parents. Our life is completely owing to them. In the same manner, our life is owing to the Panchabhutas also. We have to breathe air, and either our father or grandfather or grandmother, nobody has gifted it. We have to live and move upon earth someplace. You will find the Panchabhutas alone are the source of our sustenance. As we are grateful to our parents, we should also be grateful to the Panchabhutas, to the entire universe. Whatever we have imbibed it from our parents, grandparents, and still others behind and beyond. But very seldom you find the kind of indebtedness and gratitude that are necessary towards our parents and further generations of the past. People are not feeling and expressing. The moment a child becomes an adult, he starts speaking to the parents saying that, no, my studies and schools are different. You may not know what I think. I think in a nuclear manner. This is how people are generally responding. But it should not be so. The greatness and esteem of any society whatsoever is proportionate to the indebtedness that they feel to the senior citizens and the predecessors. Unfortunately, we are not aware of it. Our constitution has put a clause in it saying that under the fundamental duties, it is for every citizen to uphold the heritage and legacy that we have in common. But what is this heritage and what is this legacy? Nobody is generally thinking about. It is incumbent on the government as well as all the other allied institutions and organizations to introduce in our educational system sufficient elements to ensure that India remains great, strong, and unconquerable. We have got such a legacy in our heart and mind that I don't think we are at any point of time susceptible to unnecessary assailments and assaults. Character, behavior, and integrity and interaction, these are the three important facets of our life, expressions of our life. You will find that in all our epic narrations and allied literature, only these 3 points are taken up, illustrated, and imparted. I would like to phrase them in this manner: characteral elegance, behavioral majesty, and interactional excellence. If Valmiki has written on drama, his intention was to illustrate whatever he wanted the people to cultivate in terms of mento-intellectual values is illustrated in Sri Rama as a prince and as a king. When we come to the Mahabharata, it consists of 1,25,000 Sanskrit verses. 2,000 and odd chapters are there. All of it is written by Vedavyasa, and it is a concurrent history that he has written. I like to describe it as a concurrent history because generally history is written after centuries pass since the incidents have taken place. They access various records and citations and try to somehow combine something called history. But either Valmiki, the author of Ramayana, or Vyasadeva, the author of Mahabharatam, has done so. Valmiki wanted to know. He asked Narada Maharshi, is there anybody living now? Konvasmin sampratam loke gunavan yascha viryavan. Is there anybody living now, my dear saint? You are given to travel. Unrestrictedly, unhinderedly, you are traveling everywhere in the world. So you have an access to whatever is taking place and transpiring anywhere. Do you have to tell me that there is somebody? Don't say there was. I don't want to hear it. Is there anybody living now who is qualitatively enriched, who is good, noble, ethical, great, powerful, heroic, adventurous, successful? This kind of a qualities he is mentioning. Is there anyone? This was the question. Our Narada had no doubt to say, yes, there is one. That is Rama, the first son of Dasharatha. He is still young, growing, not that he has become an adult. To the extent I know about him, I shall tell you. The rest you find out by your own examination and verification. This is how Valmiki started writing on Rama. As Rama was growing, Valmiki was writing. After some time, when his dear and beloved Rama happened to abandon the pregnant Sita, his wife, and he saw that, he ensured that his Sita was abandoned at the doorstep of Valmiki's cottage, hermitage. The disciples reported the sight of a woman, pregnant woman, good-looking woman. When Valmiki came himself, saw her and said, "My dear girl, my dear daughter, I neither blame your husband Rama, nor do I blame you. Come. I shall be your parent and you will be my daughter. I shall arrange for all the care that you need through my householder disciples." From that moment onwards, he became a part of the biography that he was writing. So I would like to describe Ramayana as a biography cum autobiography. Whereas if you go to Vedavyasa, he was writing everything about his own generations. Dhritarashtra, Pandu, etc. were his own biological children. And from there down to Parikshit, Janamejaya, there were 6 generations. All these generations he is writing about, where he was a participant in everything. That is why I call it a concurrent history. We have 2 dynasties, the solar dynasty and the lunar dynasty. Sri Rama belongs to the Surya Vamsha, where Ikshvaku, Aja, Raghu, etc. were alive. Rama also belongs to it. Then no Rajavamsha has survived in India, whereas the Rishi Vamsha still continues. You will find in this assembly itself many people belonging to Bharadwaja Gotra, Vasishta Gotra, etc. All are Rishi dynasties. They are not biological, they are mental. Each person belongs to a Gotra by virtue of some kind of an option, you can say. So that still continues. That is the cultural greatness of India and distinction also.